Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And it is true that I did do stand-up comedy. What Scott didn't say is that I didn't say I wasn't any good at it. Someone who's born without a sense of humor, so it was kind of a challenge. It's funny, though, if I think back, and I was talking to Scott a little bit before we started, I mean, this is a school that has been on my radar screen for a long time. I go back, and I hate to say this, 1986, I'm a senior at Brother Rice High School in Birmingham, Michigan. There are two schools I was considering for college. One was John Carroll. The other was the school that I went to that I don't want to say out loud because you'll hate me for the entire conversation. But it is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But this school is a tremendous school, and it's a school with a great reputation. It's a school with certainly a great dean and great faculty, and Scott certainly is. I can understand why everyone here is a disciple of Scott. Can we hear it for Scott, please? So thank you for having me. Everyone in the back can hear me okay? All right, great. Thank you. So let me start with a story. Leah Gabrielle is someone who is used to being courageous. Leah was a fighter pilot on the USS George Washington, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. And every day, Leah would take off from this flight deck and land on the flight deck. And when we see these on TV, it looks so easy. They go up and they land. But this is a ship that is going up and down and moving, and they're landing at night. It's terrifying. But for Leah, over a period of time, it got to be almost routine. It got to be her job. And then one day, something happened. A fellow pilot, a senior pilot, a friend of Leah's, Lieutenant Commander Robert Trey Kluge, was killed when his plane crashed into the sea. Leah was devastated. Everyone in the ship was devastated. They ceased operations for 3 days. They honored Lieutenant Commander Kluge. And after that time, they resumed operations, and Leah found herself sitting in the cockpit of her plane, and she's thinking. And she's looking at the ground crew, and she's thinking to herself, once I give the thumbs up and the salute, I'm committed. And she looked at the ground crew. She gave the thumbs up and the salute, and off she went. And part of what she told me is I realized in that moment that every single time I have the chance to challenge myself, to push myself forward, I have to do it. Because you realize we're only as good as the last time we're challenged, the last time we challenge ourselves. Now, tonight, every single one of us have come in these doors, and we have challenges. There may be a challenge in school, or a challenge with a person, or it could be a health challenge, or a challenge with a child. We all have challenges. The question is, how do we step up to meet those challenges? Because we are only as good as the last challenge we faced. And the truth is, we have all faced and overcome so many incredible things to get to where we are right now. But what's the secret? How do we take command of our lives? And taking command really means being intentional. It means not letting life control how I'm going to respond to things. It's me saying, I am going to take command. I am going to be responsible. I'm going to be intentional. And so the first area that we have to start with then is what? It's our thoughts and our emotions. Why is it we can have two people in the exact same situation, same set of facts? One person is thriving. They're optimistic. They're excited. They're succeeding. The other person looking at the same thing, they're struggling. Why is it? It's our thoughts. It's the way that we think. What if we could change that? What if we could impact that? What if we could be courageous and resilient and confident in the face of adversity and challenge? The second part of taking command is taking command of our relationships. So much of our lives doesn't it? It comes down to the quality of our relationships, right? If we've got good relationships with people, whether it's in our family or at work or in school, it can make all the difference. And on the other hand, if we can't interact with other people, if our interpersonal skills aren't strong, if we are constantly butting heads with people, how does that affect our happiness? How does that affect our futures? So we're going to talk about taking command of our relationships. How do we have enduring, strong, powerful relationships? And then the last part is, what about our future? I mean, taking command of our futures. You know, one of the things, Michael Crom is Dale Carnegie's grandson, and he and I co-wrote Take Command, and it's based on Dale Carnegie principles. We'll talk about the book tonight. But one of the things we were wondering was, what is the number one regret that people have on their deathbeds? And what we found was that the number one regret that people had was not having the courage to live the life that was true to themselves, worrying about what other people thought, fearing failure, fearing taking risk. God forbid that any of us in this room get to that point in our lives where it's too late. Taking command of our futures means right now we start to think about that. What is the life that I want to have? What's the contribution I want to make? What's the legacy I want to leave? What makes me truly happy and fulfilled? That's taking command of our futures. And we're going to talk about that tonight. Now, I'm curious, a quick show of hands, before any of the introductions or before this event, how many people here were familiar with Dale Carnegie? Oh, good number of hands. All right, that's great. How many people here have read How to Win Friends and Influence People? All right, pretty good. All right, and how many people here, and Dale Carnegie people, and I know who you are, don't raise your hands. How many people here have taken a Dale Carnegie course? Okay, I've got a few people here.
Graduate today. Yesterday.
Oh, congratulations. That's great. So Dale Carnegie is someone who was incredibly brilliant, innovative. He really understood people. Someone who started out in a very difficult situation, very poor upbringing on a farm in Missouri. Someone who went to college and realized he had great skills at speaking. Ultimately went into sales. His first was just a horrible failure at his first job in sales, but then got another job in sales, was extremely successful. Gets offered to go into management, says, no thank you, I'm going to go to New York City, I want to go study acting. Fails as an actor, and ultimately decides to start these programs, the Dale Carnegie course in 1912. But part of what he realized, and part of what he was studying, was people and how people work. And so when we look at a book like How to Win Friends and Influence People, we say this book has been a bestseller for 87 consecutive years. How is that? He really understood people. He was brilliant. So someone once asked him, hey, Dale, what is the most valuable thing you've ever learned in your life? I read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder what it is. And what he said was, it's the importance of what we think. If I know what you think, I know what you are. Our thoughts make us what we are, right? It's that attitude that makes all the difference. He quotes Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, our lives are what our thoughts make it. And he also says, you know, I know without a conviction beyond all doubt that the biggest problem that you and I have to deal with, in fact, almost the only problem, is choosing the right thoughts. If we can do that, we'll be on the high road to solving all of our problems, right? Choosing the right thoughts. Well, what does that mean? What that means is that all of us at different times will have all kinds of different things that we may think. You know, when I talk to people all over the country, all over the world about taking command, you know what one of the number one things that comes up as a negative thought that people have? It's imposter syndrome. It's, you know, I'm not good enough. Or I can't do this. These thoughts that we have, these negative thoughts, but other people don't have those kinds of thoughts. Or if they do, that we can condition our minds so that we're focused on something that's more empowering. You know, Dale Carnegie is it's a global organization. We've got 200 operations in 86 countries. We've conducted a lot of research. And one of the things that we learned in our research is that people who are resilient, who can face adversity, are confident, and they've got a positive mindset. They expect better results and they get better results because their minds are focused on that. And the good news is, we can all be that way. This is not something that is unattainable. It's attainable to every single person, all of us. Now, my kids, I have 6 kids, which has been hard, by the way. I'm just going to tell you, it's been very, very hard. They're now ranging from 17 to 25, but there was a period where they were 6 or 8 years old. That was kind of tough. And there was a period of time where a bunch of them were teenagers. And that was really tough. But the thing that they would always say is, hey, this stuff, Dad, you talk about, choosing the right thought like it's easy. It's not easy, okay? It's something that takes time. It's something that we have to condition ourselves to do. But what's the first step, okay? And part of my goal for tonight is, and there's a lot of things we'll talk about, my hope is you take one thing, just one thing away that you can practice and start to live and it will make an impact. And I practice these things myself all the time. But the first thing is, do we pay attention to our thoughts? I mean, like, how many times do we stop and actually think about how we think? We wake up in the morning and maybe check our email or check our text or go to social media and I see something and immediately get frustrated or angry about it or happy or laugh or whatever. But do we stop and think about what am I thinking about here? What's the thought process that's going on? Because one of the first skills that we can all have is let's start paying attention to those thoughts and those voices. Sometimes we'll say vicious things to ourselves. We'll say things to ourselves that no one else would say to us. I'm such a loser. I can't believe I did that again. I'm so stupid. No, let's pay attention to the thoughts that are going through our minds so that we can then shape the things that we're thinking. When we see those thoughts, are they harmful? Are they supportive? What do they look like? But if there's one thing that we all do leaving tonight, it might be, hey, I want to make sure I'm paying attention to those thoughts that are happening so that I can then shape how I respond. I have a friend who, I called this guy out of the blue because I had a resolution at the beginning of the year. I want to keep in touch with people better. So I called someone and the first thing he said is everything okay? It's like sometimes the first place our mind goes, the boss says, hey, I'd like to have you come into my office. Most people don't think, great, I'm getting a raise. Most people think, oh gosh, what did I do? So do our minds tend to go to the worst? And by the way, we're wired that way, right? It's a protective mechanism that goes back to cave people days, right? We're trying to protect ourselves, so we might think that way. I had an experience where this was really very vivid to me, and it was during COVID. As I mentioned, we're a global company, and I'm the CEO of this company, which is a huge honor and responsibility, and I love our people and our teams and our customers. And in January 2020, I was in my office in New York, and one of my key people came in and said, we got something going on in China that we need to talk about. And we got on that night with our Chinese teams, and they're telling us about COVID. And they're telling us, yeah, we're going to be locking down. Now, at that point in time, 95% of our business, if you were having a Dale Carnegie experience, it was in a room like this one, at a company, or it was in a public class. 95% in person. Asia starts to shut down. Europe starts to shut down. We all know what happened here, and by March 2020, and all of a sudden, as you can imagine, our business is in a potentially dire situation. I was waking up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and my mind was going to the worst possible places. And as I look back, I'm a little disappointed in myself because I should have known better. But the emotion can get the best of us. One night, I picked up Dale Carnegie's book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. I'm flipping through it just looking for something that's going to help me feel better. And that quote that we just looked at was, I came to it and I said, oh my gosh, the problem I have is not COVID. The problem I have is choosing the right thoughts. Why am I worried that the worst is going to happen? What can I do as the leader of this business to inspire our teams to transform our business faster so that we can serve our clients? And ultimately, that's what we did. In a period of 4 months, We had 1,000 trainers from around the world who became certified to deliver our programs live online. Now, a Dale Carnegie program involves, it's not a lecture. I mean, people, you're on your feet and you're speaking, you're doing all kinds of things. We didn't know how it was going to work, but our teams were so resilient, our trainers were so resilient that the scores, the net promoter scores, voice of customer scores, were as high online as they were in person. Today, our business has come back. We are even more competitive than we were before. But all of this starts with our thoughts. I remember, and can you remember those days of COVID? Do you remember? I mean, even in June 2020, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how long we were going to be locked down. But, I remember in some of those days thinking to myself, this is going to end. And do I want to look back and see cowardly or courageous? This is an opportunity I have to lead. All of us have opportunities to lead. All of us have opportunities to think about how do we want to see this situation. Now, what if we could start to change the undermining thoughts that we have? All of us have thoughts at times that can undermine our thinking, can make us down or depressed, can make us think, hey, I gave this talk in Nashville, and a man came up to me and said, I've wanted to start a new business, but I've been afraid to do it. Well, hey, that's a legitimate fear, but what's the reason? Are you prepared, and so forth. It's like we can't. There's a great quote that everything we want is on the other side of fear. Everything we want is on the other side of fear. So what if our undermining thoughts could change? What if we could practice choosing the right thoughts? And in a moment, we're going to go through an exercise that I hope is a valuable takeaway for everybody here. But before we do that, paying attention to our thoughts and noticing our limiting thoughts are the first part of this process. Then it's about practicing. And this is an ongoing exercise where we want to condition our minds for success. If I go to the gym, which I do from time to time, and I pick up a set of dumbbells and I do biceps and I leave and never go back, it's like, well, that was fine, but I'm never going to build muscle. What we're talking about is what are the routines? How do we condition ourselves so that our mindsets become powerful? We can do that. So part of the way we do that, paying attention to our thoughts, noticing our limiting thoughts, using negative thoughts as an early warning system. This is where, think about an oil light. Our oil light on the car goes off. We're not happy when we see it, but we're glad that we know because we can do something about it. Which reminds me, does anyone here know what a seized engine is?
Doesn't sound fun.
Yeah, when I was 18 and I had a girlfriend at Michigan State University and I drove over to visit her and I left my car and I've been ignoring the blinking oil light for weeks. And then the car wouldn't start because the engine had stopped working. I learned how much it cost to replace a 1982 Ford Mustang engine. But we want to use, negative thoughts can be an early warning for us. When we notice these, it's like timeout. There's a man named Alex Schwarzkopf. We talk about him in the book. He's the CEO of a company called Pillar Technologies. This is a guy who started a business with nothing, built it into millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars. But his thoughts were, I'm over my head. He's looking at his friends who were CEOs, looking at other people on social media who seemed like they were doing better. He's like, I suck. I can't do this. I'm not nearly as good as my other friends who've got better families, better houses, better cars, whatever it is. He literally drove himself to a point of exhaustion until he learned to start to use negative thoughts as soon as I start to feel these, I got to turn around. I got to flip it. I've got to reframe my thoughts or use affirmations, right? Which have been around for a long time, but these are really effective. What are the things that we tell ourselves? So, in a moment, what we're going to do, everyone here should have an index card on your chairs. Can everyone take your index card, put it over your head, make sure you got one? Okay. Does anyone here need an index card? If you do, stand up and we will make sure we get you an index card. Okay. So what we're going to do with this index card, and please leave room because there's 3 things we're going to write over 3 different exercises. And the first one is, we're going to take 30 to 60 seconds, and we're going to write down. I'm going to invite everyone to write down. This is just to think about yourself. What is that one thought that is holding you back? I'm too old. I'm too young. I can't do it. I'm too, whatever it is. I'm over my head. I always screw up. Whatever it is. What is that one thought? And I'm going to ask you to write it down. And the reason why I want you to write it down is because we're going to take these cards with us. And what would be the impact if we could identify that thought and eliminate it and change it, and then be able to use that process for other things? We start to build resilience. We start to build mindsets. So we'll take about 30, 60 seconds. Everyone should have a pen. Please just write down on this card the one undermining thought, the thing that's holding you back from something that's important, that if you changed it, would make a meaningful difference in your life. Are there any questions? Okay, please begin. So, who would like to share either what they said or something they heard? What is a limiting thought that you want to share? Yes, please stand up and tell us your name, please.
So I'm Adam Carter. So mine is very classic, I think, an imposter syndrome type thing where I've been looking to get out of the role that I'm in for a while now because I'm unhappy where I'm at. And job descriptions are extremely intimidating to me. I'll look at them and I'll say, I'm not at all qualified. Yet I'll also look around and say, oh, I could do that. And other positions within the company. So it's this weird duality.
So the undermining thought is, I'm not qualified.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay. And what would you say? How does that thought affect the way you're acting? The way how does it affect your life?
I mean, it keeps me in the position I'm in. Keeps me from, even if I have a recruiter reach out to me, it keeps me from responding because I just assume that I'm going to be a bad candidate.
And what happens if that thought doesn't change?
I'll be stuck where I'm at, or I'll have poor enough performance due to my attitude that it'll be forced upon me.
Yeah, what's the saying? You either change people or you change people. So you might be changed. That's right. So then what would if you wanted to replace that thought? Okay, and you said to yourself, look, I want to start, and you realize that you see it as a false thought, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's because sometimes what fear is false evidence appearing real, right? We sometimes fear things that never happen. We undermine ourselves. So how would you flip that? What would you replace that thought with? When the next time you have the recruiter call and you're thinking, this is a great job, but I'm not qualified. What's the thought you want to have?
Probably the exact opposite. If I am qualified, I could do a good job in that role. I can take that company somewhere and add my skills to it. So. Yeah,
so once you say, I am qualified, what does that get you starting to think about?
The future and what that brings.
Yeah, the future and what that brings and why you're qualified, right? You say, I am qualified because. Look, I've been in this role. I've gotten good reviews. I've gotten this, I went to John Carroll. All these things. It's like once we replace the negative one with the other, and we want it to be an authentic one, but it is an authentic one. We got to sometimes look back to look forward. So if you replaced that thought, what would the impact of that be? So now your new thought is, I can do this, or I'm qualified, or I want to give this a shot, right? So what's the impact then of that?
Well, I wouldn't say less stress in my life, but new roles, new stress. Change. I like change. I like new challenges, so that would bring some happiness to my life. New experiences. In general, positivity.
All right. So what would keep you from flipping that thought now?
Not a whole time. Time to sit back, think about it, and take action.
Okay, so time, right? So maybe it's, and one of the reasons we're writing this down is because once we write something down, it's real, right? So if we took a minute a day and looked at the card and said, this is the undermining thought, I'm getting rid of this, I'm replacing it with something else, right? I mean, how do we start? Chapter 2 of the book, we talk about routines. You've all got the book. So, I mean, there are all kinds of examples of people who've developed routines. But thank you very much for sharing that, and good luck with that. How about someone else? Another thought, something you wrote down? Yes, here and then here.
My name is Eric Felton, and if I may share one that I actually overcame once.
That's great, Eric.
So a few years ago, I was paralyzed with the fear of, what if I don't belong? What if I don't belong? And specifically, it was, what if I don't belong in the John Carroll made program? What if I'm not cut out for business school? What if I just am too silly, too goofy? I just can't understand that business, how it's going. And what really helped me get over it actually was beginning to think, well, what if I do? What if I do belong? And if nothing else, like if I can't do it for me, I'll do it for my cat. I was looking at my cat one day. Every time I come home from work, my cat, like, it's kind of like a dog.
Can I just say, I think for all of us, that's a new tagline. If not for me, then for my cat. Yes.
There's a phrase that goes something like, be the person that your dog thinks you are. And, or in my case, I like to try to be a person that my cat thinks I am. And if you think about it, like a small, 1 foot tall animal that looks up to us and thinks, wow, like, it must be really cool to be dad. Especially the way I have my house wired up, and I can change the temperature and the lighting with my voice. So I tell Alexa, turn on the lights, set the temperature at 7. My cat must think I'm God. It's like, I speak. And so if my cat thinks that of me, why don't I think the same of myself? And that was kind of like I wrote.
So you changed your thought. You changed, and what did you change it to?
What if I do? Is kind of
What if I do? Oh, okay. And what's happened, Eric, in your life since that time?
Since then, so this was 4 years ago now. So since then, I attended John Carroll. So I'm on the other end of that paralyzing thought. And every time I think of what if I don't belong, the only way to find out if you do is to go, or is to do it. And that was the one major change. What if I do belong? And I'm not going to do it for myself, do it for my cat.
All right. Well, thank you, Eric. That's great. When we give these examples, we can see plainly if Eric had not changed his thought, he may not have come to John Carroll. If he had not come to John Carroll, he wouldn't have had all the fruits that came from that achievement. And, for all of us, there are things like that. Someone who says, I want to start a business, but I'm afraid. They never do it. They regret it on their deathbeds. We need to be prudent. We need to think through things. I'm not saying, do something crazy, but there are a lot of things that we're capable. We're capable of so much more than we think. We'll take one more. Kristen, I think it was.
Please say your name.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Kristen Herbert Kelly. Mine was kind of surprising when I went to write it down. I thought, oh wow, my thought is I shouldn't have to do that. And I was thinking about things like repairing things, fixing things, going above and beyond. There's all that stuff that creates this frustration and this sense of being put upon. Like, I shouldn't have to do that, right? And when you said challenge yourself with a new thought, I was like, ooh, okay, how do you get around that? Because maybe there really are things that you don't want to do, right? But I struggled with this a little bit, so I came up with, I have the opportunity to, and I can either choose to or not. So it's kind of like a two-part thing. First, I have the opportunity to do this, and then I choose to, either A or B. Or maybe I choose not to do it. Yeah. And that just leaves the frustration behind.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. It's funny, Kristen, you remind me, when I was a young lawyer, there were certain jobs I hated. And I remember reading this book, and it said all new people in a job take the undesirable project. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. I just went to law school. I just passed the bar exam. I'm a lawyer. But what I found was that by taking those things on, I became very valuable to the partners I reported to, and they were like, wow. So you become the go-to person. One last story. There was a man who came to one of our Take Command talks, and he had been estranged from his son. He said, I love my son. I've always had a great relationship. We've had some real issues, and I just don't think he wants to talk to me. I've called him. He doesn't talk to me. He doesn't want to hear from me. His son lives in Boston. He lives in Connecticut. One day he decided, what if I switch this up? What if my son does want to see me? He got up at 4 in the morning. He drove to Boston. He knocked on his son's door. The son opened the door and said, Dad, I'm so glad to see you. The father had the wrong thought. Changing the thought, taking that risk has meant everything in that relationship. So for each of us to think about whatever it is, and sometimes it's more than one thought, but when we pay attention and we notice it and we start to flip things, we can take command of our lives, we can be intentional. Now, the other area, or another area that's really important around this, is relationships, right? Because the quality of our lives so often is about the quality of our relationships. You know, and one of the things that Dale Carnegie talked about, and again, maybe our Dale Carnegie franchise people shouldn't answer this question, but for anyone else, who knows what Dale Carnegie's principle number 1 is? Anyone? Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Right? So principle number 1 of 30, principle number 1, don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That doesn't mean we don't deliver feedback, but what it means is if we want to have influence, if we want to be leaders, if we want to build strong relationships with people, if we want people who want to be around us, if I am the person that is constantly complaining and whining and talking about why things aren't going to work, people aren't going to have anything to do with me. Part of what he says is, but instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. It's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. And what is one thing that our world needs and relationships need? If we want strong relationships, empathy. Right? Principle number 17, try honestly to see things from another person's point of view. How often do we just live in our own points of view and we don't really stop and listen and try to see things from another person's point of view? If we want to have a strong relationship in any context, there has to be respect, right? There's this great quote that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And they know that you care when you listen. And when we try to see things from another, doesn't mean we're going to agree, but we're going to say, look, I get you, I hear you. Now, delivering criticism can be a very difficult thing. And there's a right way and a wrong way. And we talk about the difference in the book of criticism and feedback. So if we are dealing with family, friends, people at work, people in school, and we have to deliver something, first is criticism focuses on what's wrong. Gosh, Scott, you are always late. Why can't you be on time for once? Nothing personal. I know that's not true. But feedback, and again, and this goes to even what leadership is. Leadership is, you bring out the best in other people so you can accomplish great things together. I say, Scott, first of all, I know you care about so much. You work so hard. I've noticed the last few times you've been here, you've been coming in a little bit late. Is everything okay? Do we need to change something? But assuming positive intent before, we just assume the worst or go on focusing on what's wrong. Criticism implies a personal shortcoming. You are ignorant and uneducated. Now, God forbid that anyone here would say that. No one here is going to say to someone, you're ignorant and uneducated. But do we ever say anything like that to anybody? Or do we ever hear someone say something like that? And what's the impact of that kind of a statement? It goes back to the first point, right? So we focus on behavior. And I got to tell you, right now, I've just gone through doing personnel reviews for people. And there's a great many things that people are doing really well, and there's something people need some work on. And I'm reminding myself, this is not about the person. This is about the behavior. So hey, I've asked you to do this project, and you've done well in this area. It looks like you may be struggling in this. Is there something you need? How do we help you function more effectively here? But the way that we say it, in Dale Carnegie, one of the things we say is you can say anything almost if you know how to say it, and if we say it in a way that respects the person's dignity. Criticism devalues the other person. You know what? It's just not even worth it. You can't handle this. Feedback encourages. I remember being young in my career and having a boss who gave me a very good review, and at the end of the review he said, look, I got to tell you one thing. I said, what is it? Expecting it to be something good. He said, well, you are the single most offensive person I've ever met. And my first reaction was, no, I'm not. I was like stunned. I was like, well, what do you mean? Could you tell me I understand? And you know what? He pointed out a number of things, and he was right. I didn't realize it. I was defensive. And that made it uncomfortable for people wanting to give me feedback. And not getting that feedback meant that I wasn't going to improve. And it was a game-changing moment for me. But, you know, when we are great leaders, we bring out the best in other people. But part of the reason that we do that is we encourage. And he did encourage me. By the way, I'll share one other thing. When we were writing this book, we had an advisory group of 12 people from all over the world. They were 18 was the youngest. I think it was actually John Glanneman, who's in the back. His daughter was part of our group, to 40. And these are people in multiple, I think 8 countries. And so we would go to them with ideas. We ran the first chapter by them. So Michael and I wrote this chapter. We sent them the chapter. We said, please tell us what you think. Give us your honest opinion. We hope you love it. And the feedback we got back was just awful. One of the comments was, I mean, it was universally, we don't like this chapter. And one of the comments was, reading this chapter made me really sad. I had much higher hopes for this book. I'm like, oh my gosh. But the intention was to help it be a better book. We went back to them and said, what would make it better? What are we missing? And we went through multiple rounds of the first chapter. We then went back and we said, what do you think? So we love it. This book that you have in your hands is better today because of the feedback of other people. And we all can be better when we get good feedback, if we know how to leverage that. But giving feedback, being gracious, boy, it can be tough. But thinking about how would I want to receive this feedback myself? How would I want someone to speak with me? What's the manner in which I would want them to do that? And actually practicing, I've done that. I mean, maybe you have too. Just practice even having kind of a tough conversation. Giving honest and sincere appreciation. Often, I remember one job they said, hey, just so you know, the absence of criticism is your compliment. If you're not being criticized, you're doing great. All right, good culture. Looking forward to working here. But giving honest and sincere appreciation, how do we feel when we are appreciated? How do we feel when we're not? How do we feel when we've tried and we've done something good for someone and it's just blown off? And how do other people feel when we don't acknowledge them? So the exercise I'm going to ask you to do right now, we're going to take 30 seconds or so, and I'm going to ask everyone to think about one person in your life where that relationship is not where you want it to be right now. It could be a significant other, a spouse, a family member. We just are coming out of Thanksgiving. There are probably many uncomfortable conversations there. A lot of amends that need to be made. It's not even an election year yet. Could be at work. Could be in school. But what's one important relationship? And then here's the question, okay? Because it's one thing to say, this relationship is struggling. Taking command is not blaming other people, you did this, it's what can I do? What is one thing that you can do in the next 24 hours to improve it? It might be giving someone sincere appreciation. It might be saying thank you. It might be saying, you know what, I know we had a very uncomfortable conversation and I'm sorry about that. Or I want us to have a better relationship. I had someone who talked about his wife. He said, my wife doesn't feel like I listened to her. I really want to work on listening. Okay, but let's take 30 to 60 seconds. Write those 2 things down on your card, please. And any questions? Okay, please begin. Who here would like to share who they wrote down and what they're going to... Yes, we've got a hand that went straight up there.
Yeah. So I'm Matt. So one relationship that I would like to fix is a really close friend of mine who didn't show up for another close friend of mine who passed away a year ago. So I have a brother that's the same age as my friend whose brother passed away.
And so he didn't show up for any of the wake or the burial, and so that was, it was difficult for me to deal with. And then this friend whose brother that I got married over the summer, he was there, and I mean, I couldn't really even look at this friend. So it's realistically, it's how I'm dealing with it, because I actually do have empathy for him because of the way he was raised. It's really not something that he was taught, and I know that, but I still am upset about it, and really can't let it go. So being able to do that would probably be a more healthy approach.
Okay, so you have anger, you've got a disappointment, you're upset with this friend. So what is the one thing that you are going to do to try to repair that?
I could tell him exactly how I feel, but I think that he knows that. I should really probably just say, like, listen, this is something that I'm dealing with. I'm not actually upset with you. It's just a very traumatic thing for me, and that's probably why I'm upset.
Okay. How do you think that conversation is going to go?
Not well. He doesn't deal with emotions very well. So, but he would probably appreciate me saying it, I would guess, because he knows that I'm upset. We haven't talked about it.
But the question is, why do you want to repair the relationship? Does he know why you want to repair the relationship?
Because we're friends. I know that he loves me. I love him. And I know that he loves the friend of ours whose brother passed away.
So what if you said that? I just want you to know, I want to talk to you about something that's important to me. And the reason I want to talk to you is because I love you as a friend. You're like a brother. I care about you. And I have felt, maybe because of me, that our relationship has had tension. Would it be okay if we talked about that? Right? I mean, but for you to start that way, how do you think he'd respond to that?
That would probably, he would be more receptive.
Okay. Right. So these are the kinds of things, by the way, that and there's a whole range of principles and things that we teach about dealing with people in Dale Carnegie, but that's you're being transparent. And that's the why. I'm here because I care, and you're not blaming him, you're not condemning him, you're not quitting. You're just, hey, I'd like to work through this with you. That's great. Well, thank you, Matt, for sharing. That's awesome. Great job. Someone else. Yes, gentleman in the back.
I have, my name's Brian.
Brian.
I have a work colleague who, I work here at John Carroll. I'm an academic, so I complain a lot. And I have a work colleague who I think has heard me complaining lately without maybe the respect for her judgment that I feel and should have been communicating. So I can tell her that I respect her and our disagreements are from a place of respect and not just complaints.
That's great. So you're even giving context to what she might have perceived as complaints, or but it's like, hey, look, I respect you, I care about you, right? I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, that's right. And care about our joint endeavor.
Okay, and what would happen? What do you think would happen if you had that conversation with her?
I think it would also be positive. I think that would put our continuing conversation in a better place.
So what's it do to your relationship? You see her in the hallway, you see her working with her. What's the future look like if you do that?
I think a more problem solving and less complaining orientation.
All right, yeah, that's great. So and you get along better, right? I mean, we want to have influence, we want to have good relationships. You're not compromising at all anything you feel. You're simply saying, hey, I care about you, I want to work with you. So thank you, Brian. Excellent. We'll do one last person, one last example. Is it last chance? Who's got one? This is the participation part of the. Come on, no one here is bashful. One more example. Oh, I see. Yep. Tell us your name, please.
I'm Carrie. I wrote down my sister and brother-in-law. I know their names. I know some activities they like to do, just observing their activities, but I don't really know them. I'm actually extremely close with my brother and sister. I talk to them almost every other week, so it's kind of a shame that I'm not interacting with someone that's such a big part of their lives.
Okay. So what would you like to do? What's the action you're going to take in the next 24 hours?
Actual intent to form a relationship with them.
So what does that look like?
Reaching out, whether it's a text or call, and just starting to build a relationship.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, sometimes we think it's got to be a big thing, but even sending a text, hey, I'm just thinking about you, right? Or sending, great. Thank you so much. That's awesome. So a lot of this is, again, thinking about our role in the relationship. What happens if we are simply, now, there are times that people have done something that have hurt us, and we need to have that conversation and so forth. But what does it do when we're simply blaming or it's this person did this? It disempowers us, right? The question is, what can I do to help fix this? Now, there are times that we get criticized. And, Kaylin Schaub is an artist in Montreal, fabulous artist. You can see very flamboyant use of colors. If you go onto his website, he actually has this mechanism where he will trapeze over the canvas and dump paint on it. He's been mercilessly trolled on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. You're not an artist. This is fake art. You should stop doing this. All these things. But part of his perspective is twofold. Number one, hey, look, we're all going through something. And, maybe this person who's just got this bitterness inside, they got this problem. I'm not going to let it stop me. In fact, what he has done is he's literally taken tweets, these insulting, angry tweets about how much he stinks, and he's turned them into art. And you can buy one of those pieces of art for $5,000. But that is owning it, but think about, sometimes people criticize us all the time. We might hear someone say something about it, but how do we let it affect us? Now, people will treat us the way we teach them to treat us. Part of the question is, do we have boundaries in our relationships, and have we communicated those boundaries? Sometimes, like the boss will come and say, hey, I need you to, what's your name? Tori. Hey, Tori, I need you to work late, I need you to work over the weekend. Now, Tori, you might say, sure, I'll do that. But then you're like, gosh, this guy's always asking me to work late, But then the question is, do we communicate? Hey, I can't work this weekend because, right? I don't mean to single you out. And remember, I did stand-up comedy. You're the front row center. But again, the good news for you is I wasn't any good at it. So, no, but thank you, Tori. So have we communicated to the boss? Did we let the boss know? Sometimes people don't even realize that they're doing something, and they would appreciate it. It's like, hey, we had a meeting the other day, and you said this, and I'm not sure if you realize how that made me feel. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. Then there are toxic relationships, and times that maybe we just need to say, you know what? I've been clear about my boundaries. You don't respect my boundaries. I need to cut this relationship, and that's also part of what taking command is about. The last part is taking command of our future. And part of this is, here we are, we're almost in December, and, let me just go back for a second. I got to tell you, so I lived in New York for about 6 years. I'm from Michigan, moved to Long Island, and people in Long Island really didn't know much about Michigan, probably not a lot of Ohio. We're all flyover states. But people would say to me, hey, what was the worst thing about living in the Detroit area? And they would all think it was the weather. I'd say, oh, no, this is far worse than the weather. The worst thing about living in the Detroit area was the Lions. The Detroit Lions. Every year at the beginning of the season, we would think, this is the year the Lions are going all the way. No, every year except for this year, by this time we'd be like, well, there's always next year. This year, they're going to have it drag it out a little bit, But the point is, we often will have that mindset toward our goals, right? We're like, I'll get to it. No. How many things did we say that we were going to do in the beginning of this year that are important to us, our careers, our futures, our families, that we have not done? And what do we want to accomplish this year? And if there's one thing we want to accomplish, what is it? And part of this is asking about and thinking about, why do I do things or not do things? Sometimes I do things because other people think I should. I should lose weight. I should do this. But do I own that? What's my purpose? Now, in the book, we talk about purpose in two ways. There's purpose with a small p and purpose with a capital P. Purpose with a small p means, hey, I've got a purpose in my life at a particular point, and these are the things I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get established in my job. I'm trying to buy a house. I'm trying to start a family. I'm trying to do these different things. Those kind of purpose things can change over time. Then you get to your point where maybe there's a capital P purpose. This is like my life's purpose. It took me a long time, but my life's purpose is about inspiring other people to see the greatness that they have inside of them. That's what fires me up. That's what gets me excited. And there might be different things that it is for you, and it may take a long time to get to that. But when we have that thing that drives us, it's so much easier then to align our goals around building a future. Now, many times people will think about purpose, and they think it has to be some big thing. Now, in the book, we talk about some people who've done some pretty big things. There's a woman named Daniela Fernandez, who at 19 in her dorm in Georgetown was just traumatized by what was happening to the world's oceans. She created what is today the single largest sustainable ocean alliance in the world. That's a big purpose. Sometimes, and I was in lunch in Brazil, and I'm going and having lunch, and this waiter is just glaring. It's awesome. Have you ever had an experience where someone like they're paying attention to you, but not too much? They're knowledgeable, they're helpful, they care. And I said to him at the end of the meal, I said, Guillermo, I'm just curious, why do you care about my experience here so much? Is it your training? Is it your boss? He's a great leader. He inspires you. What is it? He said, no, it's my mother. My mother led me to believe that my purpose in life is about serving. I can have an impact on every single person who walks in this door. I can make their day just a little bit better, and that fires me up. Now, every one of us here have the opportunity, I'd even say the responsibility, to have a positive impact on others. Sometimes it might be big, sometimes it might be small. I think about my dad. My dad was a recovering alcoholic. But he went 51 years without a drink. My entire life growing up, he never had a drink. As a kid, every Wednesday night, he would go to AA. Now, he didn't tell us that. He said he was going to a township meeting. I just thought all the dads were really civically minded. I mean, that little white lie almost inspired a political ambition for me in my life. Now, I understood when I was older and he was embarrassed about it, but when he died, person after person would come up to me and say, your dad saved my life. Your dad was a legend in our AA group. He told me, before I took another drink, call him anytime. And I did. And your dad was there for me. We can all have an impact, a positive impact on the lives of the people around us. And the chances are pretty good that if we do that, that's going to align to something within us that really is important to us. Having a positive impact, achieving something, doing something meaningful. So part of the question then is, what do we want? And do we think about, or even know, what our vision for ourselves is? And sometimes people will say, well, how do I write a vision? How do I even know what my vision is for myself? And part of it is by even starting to think about the things that really, making time to think about what are the things I'm really good at. By the way, I will tell you, when I was 27 years old and I took a Dale Carnegie course, one of the first things they do in that course is they challenge you around your vision. They say, hey, what's your vision for yourself? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be in 6 months or 10 years? And I thought to myself, I'm a successful lawyer, but I'm not a happy lawyer. I mean, I ultimately left the practice of law partly because I realized that what I was doing was not aligned to the vision I had for myself. By the way, I guess we can thank Dale Carnegie. There's one less practicing lawyer here. Any lawyers in the room? Apologize if there is. I don't want to offend anyone. But anyway, but when we think about the skills, the interests, the things that we're good at, and then making time. And again, chapter 2 is really important because part of what we talk about is and the whole part 3 of this book will take you through how do I develop a vision, what's my purpose, so that today, not the end of our lives, we don't want to get to that point where we're looking back and saying, gosh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd gone for that job. I wish I'd started. I wish I'd gone for that promotion. I wish whatever it is. So the last exercise of the night, and hopefully everyone's got a little room on your index card. This is the last thing we're going to write down. But just to think about, let's go back to the goal. Let's go back to one thing, just one thing that you've been putting off, that if you did it between now and the end of the year, it would have a significant impact. It could be any number of things. It could be starting an exercise program. It could be writing down my goals for next year. It could be whatever it is. But let's just take 30 seconds. Please think about one important goal that you've been putting off that if you wrote it down, it would have a significant impact. Any questions? All right, please begin. So this one we're not going to share. This one is for us. But again, this workshop is designed to be around action. It's around, even if you do just one of the three things, what is the impact that it might have on you? You know, we talk about taking command, and taking command really depends upon, right, it starts with our mindset, and it goes to how you can't give what you don't have. I can't support other people. I can't have a strong relationship if I myself am insecure, am fearful, am angry and resentful. I got to work on myself first. Once I do, I can have a strong relationship, and once I do, I can work together with others to achieve a great future. Now, everyone should have on your index card, three things, right? Now, if I said to you, what's the value? How much would someone give me for? Well, this index card's blank, but how much would someone pay for an index card? A penny? I don't know. Maybe if I'm a really good salesperson, a dime. But what's the value of your index card? What's the value of the things you wrote on your index card? What would happen if, when you left here, you kept this with you in your purse, in your pocket, in a computer bag, and looked at it every single day and said, this is a starting point for me? What would be the value of a restored relationship? Or using that model to restore other relationships? What would be the value of an undermining thought that no longer has control over us? Or other undermining thoughts that we've then turned around? What would be the value of one action, one goal towards something that's really important to me, toward my future? What would be the value of those things we've written on our card? I think about Leah Gabrielle. And her story is just, it's an incredible story. And we kind of just assume that, of course, Leah was going to take off. She gets back on the plane, and she's going to take off. But she didn't have to. She was devastated. She lost a friend. She could have sat in that plane and said, I'm done. I'm out. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm afraid. But she didn't. She said, I need to challenge myself. This is important to me. This is part of who I am. And for each one of us, if we leave these doors the same as we came in, man, that's on us. But this is our Leah Gabriel moment. This is the moment for all of us to take command. This is the moment where we look out and we salute and we give the thumbs up and we say, yes, I can do it. Let's do that. Let's do that now. And we begin to live the lives that we want. Thank you very much. We've got some time for Q&A, and I know that, Scott, you're going to facilitate that. Two things I want to say. One is if people want more information, DaleCarnegie.com is where you can get a ton of information, white papers, research. I've got a podcast. You can learn about that there. TakeCommand.com. You have the book, but there's more information there. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm very active on both. We also have some people here I'd like to introduce who are part of the Dale Carnegie organization, because really, when we think about Dale Carnegie around the world, we've got franchisees and trainers and salespeople and so forth. John, would you, and Marilyn, everyone who's a Dale Carnegie person from the Cleveland team, please stand up. Kristen, you too. Come on. if anyone here has any questions, thank you very much, about Dale Carnegie, about resources, if you need any help, if you just need direction or advice on any of these things, we work with individuals, we work with some of the biggest companies in the world. 400 of the Fortune 500 companies are working with Dale Carnegie around the world. So we're here as a resource to you. Please reach out to them, reach out to me if there's anything I could or we could do to support you. Happy to do that. And then Scott, what do we have, 15 minutes of Q&A?
We do.
So the question is about what do I prioritize? And you know, I guess I'd answer that in a couple ways because I think there's a question for all of us in terms of as leaders, what do we do? And when we have people who report to us, what do I do versus somebody else? So I delegate a vast majority of things that I can do. My objective is for my direct reports to essentially run the company and to involve me where I need to be involved. I'm involved in I try to say, and this could be true for all of us, where are the areas that I add unique value and what's the highest value and impact that I can have? So usually that's out around strategic kinds of things, relationship building types of things, future vision, which is a big part of, I look right now at our business, AI is a really big thing. This is an area that I'm focused on, is where do we go as a company in terms of this brave new world, AI and emerging technologies. I'm always trying to think, being at the helm of a ship, looking way out. How do we get there and so forth. And it's about inspiring other people. But for me, it is trying to focus. And frankly, I've got a board of directors, and they constantly are pushing me and us on do less. Focus on, it's like the 80-20 rule, right? What's the 20% of things you could do that will have the 80% powerful impact? I mean, and just constantly challenge myself and our team to ruthlessly just kind of cut things out. So that's where and frankly, I tell people too, they'll call me, people want to call me and they want to talk about, different things they want to sell and so forth. I'm like, hey, I'm the wrong guy. I mean, other people are going to make all those decisions. I'll be involved maybe in some cases, but yeah, thanks for the question. And gentleman in the back.
What's your name?
Father David.
One more time.
Father David.
Father David, okay.
Thank you. That's a great presentation this evening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So my question, I read a little bit about what Dr. sent to us about you and how you formed an organization solely and then went and started everything. So, as a CEO, how do you know, or what skills do you use to take a startup organization, use it to overcome the hurdles, and make it a prosperous company?
So the question is around startups. And the first startup I had was in 2000. It was an e-learning company. And how many people here have been involved in a startup? A handful of people, okay. It was probably one of the scariest things I've ever done. I completely had no idea what I was getting myself into. It was way harder than I thought it was going to be. In the beginning, I was doing it, and we had raised some angel and venture funding, and so that kind of got us going. But we launched right before 9/11, and boy, we almost went out of business. We were in the midst of a funding round. Our lead investor at that time basically said, 9/11, we're out. We were running out of money. But we got our team together, we made good decisions, we accelerated our product and so forth. So by God's grace, we made it through. I mean, it was truly. But those are the moments, like Leah said, you got to challenge yourself. But I think so, but how do you do that? We had a plan, we had a vision, it changed a lot. If there's one word, I guess I would say that was the most important one, it was tenacity. We just absolutely would not quit. And there were some really discouraging, scary times, and there were times, I'll just tell you that, I remember thinking to myself, I had a great job that I left to start that company. I'd been promoted twice in a year. It was a publicly traded company. I was very ambitious, and I left that. And for years, I was like, gosh, what a mistake that was. But sometimes in the moment, you don't realize how something's going to connect to something else. If you'd told me at that time that that experience was going to lead to the next experience that was going to lead me here, it's like, oh my gosh. So having perspective, I think, is really important in whatever we do. But really having tenacity around the things that we believe about ourselves and about our conviction. If we really believe in what we're doing, I just say you just don't stop. And we didn't. I mean, we kept going. Thank God. So, thank you. Other questions? Yes, Matt.
So I'm also somebody who recently went through a career change. So what was it like? What was the moment that made you decide to stop practicing law? And what went into that? And how did you transition into what you're doing now?
You know, Matt, it's funny. So the question about transitioning, and many people are in a career, and I will tell you, we think about thoughts. Okay, what were my thoughts at the time? My thought before I made the move from law to business was, who's going to hire me? Who is going to want a lawyer in business? I went to law school. Am I wasting 3 years of my time and my money to do this? All these thoughts. But I think one thing that I was really pivotal to me is having a good mentor. And I remember talking to a friend of mine who was a lawyer, and he said, go for it. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back to the practice of law, and you're going to find that people do value you more than you think. And sure enough, once I got out and started to look around and talk to people, they did value the law degree and that experience and the critical thinking that you learn from law. So, but I do think that it's important to have people around us who will help give us good perspective and good advice. And frankly, that man was a really important part of it for me. So, thank you for the question, Matt. Other questions?
How do you balance stress and family? How do you personally approach integrating all of that? Because you're traveling the world, you've been in Vietnam and India in the last month? 2 months ago. Okay. And you're here, you're on your way to Scottsdale next week. How do you navigate that personally?
So how do I navigate stress? And frankly, I've gotten a lot better at it. I mean, there was a period in my life where I was truly burning the candle at both ends and just getting sick all the time. I remember thinking that I should try to get as little sleep as possible so I could be as productive as possible. And I was sick constantly. And over a period of time, I've learned to prioritize sleep, prioritize my exercise, my fitness. The company that I was the president of before Dale Carnegie is called Asset Health. Your health is your most valuable asset. And so I build in exercise, meditation, prayer, reflective time into my day. It's part of my day. And really, it's part of it is planning it. Every morning I have 30 to 45 minutes where I think about the prior day. What went well? What am I grateful for? What did not go the way I wanted it to? What do I need to fix today? What are the most important things I need to get done? It's centering. Honestly, it's getting. I have a deep. I'm Catholic, and it's a Catholic school. My faith is very important to me, so that's a part of it. So, and then also reading and learning. We were talking I'm constantly listening to Audible, reading and learning and absorbing, and maybe the last thing is just having perspective, because. I've realized, and this just comes with age, I think, at least has for me, which is so many of the things. If I were to talk to my younger self and say, hey, look, what's the most important thing to tell my 22-year-old self? I'd be like, don't worry so much. So many of the things you're worrying about right now just really aren't going to matter. But you get a little older, you realize that. I've realized that my stress levels actually, I'd say, gone down over the years because I'm like, I remember, this is a story, I was meeting with the CEO of a major health system in Philadelphia and his executive team for dinner. And I forgot to pack a white shirt. I'm going to dinner with them, and I have a striped polo shirt and a plaid jacket. I'm like, I look stupid, And I ran around, I kid you not, this is in 2021, so it's just kind of coming out of COVID. It's a little COVID, a little not. And I go to Macy's, there's no white dress shirts. I go to someplace else, I couldn't, I was like, what am I going to do? So I showed up there. I actually took a picture of myself because I'm like, I look stupid. I've got these stripes and this plaid. But no one cared, and I said to them, I said, this is going to make a great story. Someday I'll stand in front of a room someplace and tell the story. but the things that we think are big deals so often aren't. And that's been a huge part of my stress management. Thank you for the question. We've got time for, what, one more question? Last question? Last question of the night? Yes, gentleman in the back.
Yeah, my name is Jack Newton. You mentioned earlier on the international level delegation. On a more personal level, I tend to struggle trying to delegate tasks. I guess how would you manage the mindset of trusting others when you are delegating certain tasks, whether they're more daunting tasks or even something minute? What type of mindset do you kind of follow?
Let me just ask Jack, so what is the reason that you struggle with delegation?
I tend to have like a thought of will it get done the way it was intended to be, or maybe it won't play out how it is in my mind, so I'll maybe second guess the process and feel like I need to step in to get it to where I think it needs to be.
Okay, so you're worried about, you know, kind of what the result's going to be, and maybe whether it'd be easier if you just did it yourself. Is that kind of fair? All right. So one thing I learned, so in the law, you know, you're really an individual contributor. You do all the work yourself, you do, and so forth. So I got used to being just lots of hours working really hard. Then I went into management at this other company, and I realized that was not going to get me anywhere. I'm not scalable individually. I only have a certain number of hours in the day, so I realized I have to be able to work with people effectively. Dale Carnegie helped me enormously because it's all about interpersonal skills and communication and so forth. But the mindset really was, number one, it was the thought was, because the limiting thought might be, I can't delegate. No one's going to do it as well as I can. But I replaced that with, if I can get even 60% of this done right, then I can help take it to the next level. Or part of it was, I'm never going to be able to do this myself. I have to learn how to become really, really good at leveraging and working with other people. And again, thankfully, that's a skill I've acquired over time. But you know, if we want to advance in our careers, if we want to lead a company, there's just no way that a person can micromanage everything. They can try, but you just drive yourself nuts. And you know, you ask yourself, what's life about? Again, my definition of leadership is it's inspiring other people to achieve things, you know, to their greatness, so you can achieve things together you couldn't do by yourself. So my goal is I want to develop the people that I'm with. That's my job. My job, you know, if you work with people and they're great and they always just do great work, that's easy. I mean, you don't need to be a great leader to do that. Great leaders develop people. Think about great coaches, someone who takes over a team and can turn whatever the team is into a great team. That's a great leader. And that's what I want to be. I think that's probably what you want to be. So then it's about how we have those conversations with people. And maybe saying to someone, you know, hey, look, you know, I want you to know, I'm going to ask you to do something. It's a little uncomfortable because frankly, I've done this myself. I want to do it myself, but I want you to do it, and I want to help make sure that you're doing it right. And if you have any questions, let me know. But let's make sure that we're clear about what you're doing and when we're going to do it, and let's go do this. I want to help you be successful, you know. And when we do that, that builds relationship. People say, yeah, gosh, you know, Jack's got confidence in me. I don't want to let Jack down, you know. And if they make a mistake, how many times have we made mistakes? A lot. So hopefully that helps. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, we have a tradition in these sessions where we conclude with a one-word reflection. And everyone is going to share out loud a one-word reflection. It's just one word. As you think about our time together tonight, what's that one word that comes to mind for you? We're going to go quickly. We're going to go fast. And we're going to start over here with Brandon. So I'm going to talk for another 2 seconds while he can think of a word that he's going to say. And the next, well, I guess right now. Sir. Transformative. Inspired. Command. Resiliency. Thoughtful. Reminder. Thoughts. Insightful. Strength. Challenged. Tenacity. Encouraging. Thought-provoking. Command. Inspired. Uplifting. Adventure.
Strategic.
Plan.
Plan.
Beliefs.
Beliefs. Forgiveness.
We can.
We can. I thought you said weekend for a second. We can. Okay. Patience. Cats. Just about the rest of the cat. I love it. Excited. Intentional. Reflective. Growth. Thoughtful. Actionable.
That's my word, action.
Action.
Resolution.
Resolution. Growth. Motivated. Challenge. Mindfulness. Fruitful. Possibilities. Inspiring. Impactful. Valuable. Intentional. Growing. Belief. Heartening. Fearless. Introspective. Thoughtfulness. Inspiring. Action. Inspiring. Possible.
Mine was action too.
That's good. That's even more than one word. Okay. Positive. Weakness. Confidence. Compelling. My word is thankful. If I do just even a little bit of what's on this sheet, that literally will change some lives. And so I'm incredibly thankful for Joe's time tonight. Let's give him a round of applause. We have some special guests today. I just want to acknowledge we have Barbara Brown. She's an executive in residence. Some of you have met Barbara already. Check in with her throughout the evening as we kind of network. June Ryan is a faculty member, Rear Admiral June Ryan. You will meet her in the coming weeks, some of you. So June Ryan is with us tonight. Please introduce yourself to her. We got Dr. Saxton, right? Making it happen back there. Thank you, sir. Tracy Patterson. We need to give Tracy a round of applause. Ashley Ambrose is incredible. She is a graduate assistant. She is getting her master's degree as well. She helped make this evening possible. So Ashley, thank you to you very, very much for being here and helping us make this a wonderful event.